Good morning. Good. Let me try once again. Good morning. Great. So it's really a good morning. And although I don't deserve the kind of introduction which Mr. Bhatia gave, looks like a bit too much. I am an employee of a technology company. So I will try to speak on something which perhaps is influencing or is impacting all our lives in our daily lives, and also see what is coming up in the future. And the topic that perhaps I picked up is Digital India. It's a very popular subject. I think every week I think you will be seeing it in newspapers and everywhere. But what does it really mean? So let me just give you a perspective. So if we look at how India looks like, right? 70% people living in rural villages, where the challenges are very different than what we're talking about. The remaining 30% who are living in cities. People living in villages are dealing with the issues around not enough doctors, not enough education, or maybe not enough teachers, not enough banking facilities that we have at our disposal. So there are very different kind of challenges that we talk of when we are going rural for the 70% of the people. The remaining 30% of the people whom we are living in cities, there are different kind of challenges. But the fact is that almost 60% of the GDP comes from the cities. And what's happening is that as we move ahead, the migration from rural to urban cities is going to lead to further urban clusters, and the contribution of the cities is likely to go up to 70%. Now, the expectation in a city is going to be very different. The issues around security, issues around sanitation, issues around transport, that's the kind of challenges that we are living in. When a person who moves from rural to urban cluster, there is an expectation. Obviously, he's moving for the purpose of a better employment to begin with, but obviously an expectation of a better life. Now, if we really go and look at this scenario, what is likely to be visible moving ahead on next as we move ahead? The technology pieces are going to be playing a big role, and that's where we call Digital India, or the dream of what Prime Minister says, the broadband being taken to the villages. Now, when the technology reaches there in villages, obviously the kind of challenges that we're saying, whether there are limited teachers or there are limited doctors, technology can fill up quite a bit of this gap. And what it means is that even today, there are options where the medical services can be delivered remotely, and doctor doesn't need to travel to a remote village. Beside that, there are also employment options for people who are living in rural, where they're semi-skilled kind of people who can work along with the doctors who are working in cities and can deliver treatment remotely. Similarly, teachers who don't even need to travel to the villages, and that solves huge number of challenges that we are living in right now. And it will reduce the pressure into the cities for sure. But however, people don't need to move to the cities just for the better education or better health care. They can still take everything, and technology can make it possible. Now, that's something which is likely to come, and the dream that Digital India or connecting those 250,000 gram panchayats and around 700,000 villages, as it gets rolled in the next 3 years, for sure, these options are going to be available and practically available through entrepreneurs that we talked about, because the key objective of Digital India will be to provide the connectivity. But beyond that, services, whether it is around health, sanitation, e-governance, education, banking, everything has to be rendered by the commercial business players who will come in, because that's where the people who need those services are staying right now. Now let's shift our view to the cities. Now cities right now, the challenges that we look at, and whether in a city like Mumbai, or we even travel to a tier 2 city, the challenges that we see are very, very different. Whether when we talk of transport, I'm not a good storyteller as perhaps Mr. Bhatia is, but look at the options. Like you walk into maybe a bus stop or a railway station. Right now, as of now, the situation is that when you reach a bus stop, you don't really know when the next bus is going to be coming, where exactly it is stuck, and the possibilities of taking any other mode. If you want to take any other mode, maybe some other public conveyance, or private conveyance. Now, on the bus side as well, there have been obviously challenges around security and possibility of options, including technology there as well. Now, that's the citizen side of it, where we are looking at what services can be rendered better by leveraging technology. Look at the business side of things. The same bus stops can be moved and transformed into a different place where the revenue for advertisement or for any other information dissemination can be delivered. Similarly, inside the buses or outside the buses, the options are huge for making revenue out of it, because the number of people in cities are like who need visibility. Both the business people who want to connect with the citizens offers immense opportunities. And on the other hand, obviously, government solves the issues of the day-to-day. So basically, when we look at technology playing role across, whether it is citizens, whether it is business owners, or whether it is government, that can become like a very connected story. And this is not just a story which is around transport. Look at the parking issues within the city. You go in any market area today and you're driving in. As of now, there is no visibility of where the parking spot is. You can keep on circling around and figuring out where do you really park. On the other hand, there may be some parking spots, maybe 100 or 200 parking places where in a parking lot, which may be lying only 50% utilized. And that's usually the case, because you don't know where the parking is available. On the other hand, the parking lot contractor doesn't know how to connect with you. And on the other hand, obviously, government is standing there. Maybe, perhaps, there are other ways of making revenue around it, because the assets will be better utilized. And also look at the options of wasting less time on finding the parking spot, or maybe wasting less fuel. So this is the way technology can play across, whether it's transport, or whether it's parking, or whether it's lighting, or whether it is security. And the other thing which we are saying is that when you look at these services today being rendered in a city, unless and until we have an integrated view across, we will still keep on solving these problems in silos. And we may still not have an answer, even like we are perhaps, as India, perhaps we are the most technology leveraged country which can happen. Look at the age of the country, average age, 26 and a half, 27. The kind of mobile population or the leverage that we got compared to any other developed nation, we kind of leapfrog every possible option of delivering broadband services on wireless. And the absorption capacity of technology and absorption capacity of the youth is immense. So I think India today is right now the best leveraged country to absorb any of these technology interventions which can make our life better from all respects. As I said, from people who are going to use it, from business owners who are going to be leveraging it, and from government whose responsibility finally it is to give a better quality of life. The other few transitions which perhaps happened in over the last, I think, 2 decades, or rather I would say the last 10 years. One is the social part. I think Mr. Mehta talked about it. When the leverage of Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Twitter is in our day-to-day lives, I don't think anybody would have imagined the kind of roles that these structures play in our life, day-to-day life. I remember, like, we are building up, renovating my house for some time, and it's very difficult to find time anyway. Most of the contacts that we were having, most of the invoices which were coming, most of the samples which were coming, all on WhatsApp. Today, any of the business owner, today, a single guy who is doing his own business, is connected in the same fashion as perhaps having a big store. So does he really need to have his own store displaying goods or anything? He's offering you everything on a mobile. So that's where the technology is playing when changing the lives, that as we see, and it's going to be, and we talked about Uber, we talked about Google playing, Tesla playing. So Tesla doesn't, like, I don't know how many of you perhaps had an experience of sitting in a Tesla car, maybe soon sometime. The car doesn't even have an engine, it just has a battery and a transmission system. So there is no vibration, you move, like it's as soft as sitting perhaps in your own living room. So it's a very different kind of things which are evolving as people look at very disruptive ways of thinking. And obviously Uber not having even ownership of a single car, but one of the biggest taxi companies of the world. So that's the kind of way things are going to evolve. So one is social, the second is obviously mobility. People would not have ever imagined that when you are calling for a car, you don't have to give any address. The person knows exactly where to come and when to come. So it's basically leveraging everything to the best. And on the other hand, one other thing which played a big role is cloud. Now, today, and for the fact is for us who have been like pretty old compared to most of us here, we have been living in the world where every enterprise used to build its own, perhaps services, data centers, and trying to put all the services there. But can you imagine, like, there was an example where Flipkart actually launched a big sale, and then on that, I think it was last year, when one particular day, when everybody tried to log in, just because it's so popular and everybody thought that things will be almost free there, it collapsed. And the reason was that perhaps they had not upscaled or they had not thought of the demand. But do you really need to build that kind of capacity on your own? There are services which are available which you can upscale depending on when you need it, how much you need it, and at what cost you need it. So the other option, and I'm not just saying it is purely because of data center technology world, cloud is a different model. It's just think of it as a virtualized capacity delivery model where people can collaboratively use it and will certainly be getting it much cheaper than what perhaps is as an option available. So you don't need to build everything on your own. Flexibility of not having resources and depending on those resources forever also comes along with it. Now, look at the changing world. So these are three trends which perhaps are changing our lives as we see in the last 5-10 years and are going to be more impactful as we move ahead. Another big factor is the video part, which is practically the traffic that is carried on video today. Can you imagine the whole movie content which has been created, and you can go ahead in 2018, everything which have been created in 2018 will be traveling every 2 hours across the internet. And that's kind of a capacity which is going to get created. Even you look at your own, like how much data you consume and how much capacity and how much speed that you need. I remember dialing up modem through a dial-up modem on an internet I think about 10 years back. Today, you can't even think of, like, maybe every person expecting, okay, do I get 15 Mbps or get 10 Mbps? So basically your hunger is increasing and increasing. And people on the other side who are delivering it are also willing to scale their capacity. So the options that are going to be available through technology and then travel along with giving you a lever of video also. Like how many of you even think of going to a bank and standing in a queue and getting your receipts, and those days are gone. You can talk to your relationship manager on your phone as good as you are standing or kind of you going to a bank and really talking in a much more professional way, because he has access to all your possible transactions or whatever information you need in one go, playing on those collaborative tools, and you don't need to go anywhere. How much time is saved, how much in terms of energy and in terms of your efficiency, everything increases. So I just want to talk about one more concept which we talk as IoE, or it's also called as the popular world, I don't know how many people are familiar with this Internet of Things. The scenario which is emerging is connected things. And I'm not saying, Mr. Bhatia, just like because smart things or smart technology, there is a way that everything looks like will get connected. In terms of, we talked about the cars, like in terms of a Tesla car. Actually, it's just a computer and a battery. It's like all the things are practically logic based, and it's kind of delivering what perhaps you need on a completely processor based scenario. Similarly, if you go to a manufacturing floor, or if you go to a banking floor, or if you go to anywhere you're seeing in terms of transaction, you will see the devices getting connected. Simply like when you're booking a car through Ola or Uber, what exactly you're doing? Basically using your device, and the other person has a GPS or has a device which perhaps gives, and then there is a data server. So practically the kind of scenario that we see is millions or billions of devices getting connected to each other. And the work that you expect today are all looking at manual will become more like a logic based, and certainly we will not have dependencies and subjectivity of individuals taking or to have decisions. Just imagine on a manufacturing floor today, the kind of decisions that the plant heads have to make with regard to introducing any new product or changing any design or doing a preventive maintenance it causes a bit of certainly a huge downtime as well. And the kind of time it takes to bring in a new product and assessing it, what the impact will be on the floor, is also immense. Now, the technology playing in through possible options of IoE or IoT will certainly be, as you see, this world going to be significantly changing. Same as would be retail, like how much of goods moving on to the online sales, while even retail stores, if you go in, are looking so different and are trying to give you experience so different than what it used to be a few years back. So as we move ahead, the leverage of IoE as a technology through connected devices is going to be very different. And when we say only not just the things or the devices which are going to get connected, when you add on top of it the people, the data and the process part around it, the life will become, or the way we will see the world is going to be hugely changing and impacting in our day-to-day lives. So that's something which I thought I will talk about. Now, in terms of sustainability, the point that we're trying to make is that considering that the intervention is bound to happen, even if you think when to decide, okay, whether I should be thinking about the next level of whether you are an individual managing your own office or business, you can think of introducing or looking at the technology sooner or later, but the world will change you. And has it been for many of the businesses who are right now perhaps don't even exist today, and the new business owners have taken in place of those, the scene is likely to happen. So it's time to think about options which are available in our day-to-day, in our various businesses, and see what best can be leveraged and think ahead. And that's the logic of having a sustainable development through technology. That's what I thought I would share with you. Thank you.
Okay.